about a group of gargoyles flying around New York City. That just had more appeal to me, quite honestly, and I less managers.
Yeah,
Let's say
less cooks in the kitchen,
less
right?
cooks in the kitchen. I
Yeah.
love Spider-Man, but I look at elements of the design that I think they didn't quite understand. And I
Mm,
know there's that a lot of that stuff is because of the cooks in the kitchen.
right.
Uh, a lot of the problems with it, but the stuff that came through still made it a fantastic show. It had great stories, you know, it had great direction. I look at things also as a design as part of the story, and I think they could have done better with the designs on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's some that are amazing and some that are less. And like Batman the animated series had such a specific design that was so married to that universe that you could see those characters anywhere and go, that's from Batman the animated series. But I've always felt with Spider-Man with the animated series, if you saw a cell from Spider-Man the animated series, if you weren't in the know, you might be like, oh well, that's from a Spider-Man comic, because it didn't have a look that was specific to that show. I felt like it was a bit kind
Yeah,
of more
that's a good way to
generalized.
put it. And I'm going to throw out another name. A lot of people, you know, that is just as important to to Batman as Bruce Timm or Eric Radomski, and that's Ted Blackman. Ted was the background designer on the series,
Right.
and as wonderful as Bruce's designs are, they just wouldn't have been the same without backup from Ted's backgrounds
Definitely.
because it was so unique at the time.
Yeah, I mean
Uh,
that got the look to that show
yes,
specifically.
absolutely,
Gotham and
and
just
that helped seal what you're talking about, the identity.
mm,
And I was doing when I left to do Gargoyles. My big thing was they hired me because of my work on Batman, but they didn't want it to look like Batman,
yeah.
and I didn't want it like Batman. And when I'm over there, when we were doing Gargoyles, it was supposed to be like 13 episodes a year, maybe. And then they jumped up to 52 because everybody liked it so much. They did 52, wanted 52 in a year, which is impossible. Again, Disney. So when I was doing that, I was going, you know, I changed all the characters because a lot of the character did work had already been done on that, but I altered the way they looked and I gave it a more cinematic appeal to it, to a lot of the designs and to the simplicity of the animation. But the one thing I wanted to really keep because they sent me overseas to Japan, and they're showing me who's going to be doing the studios, and it was Studio Fuga. Fuga, in case you haven't known anything, they did all of Miyazaki's backgrounds,
All right.
Right. Okay.
and so I'm going, let's keep the detail.
Yeah,
Had these
definitely.
big sweeping vistas of New York, you know, and it's like I want to see a river of light amongst these big blocks of, you know, unlighted concrete. You know, you play up that kind of stuff to help give it a solid thing, and we kept the detail because we had the artists that could do match the backgrounds. I wish we could have kept that up through the series, but I had no idea they were going to jump and want to do this ridiculous amount of stuff within that time. But I wanted it set it apart from Batman. It was
Yeah, of course.
dark, scary. The designs you could argue or the simplicity were very similar, but the backgrounds and the identity of it was very much different than what we did, what was done in Batman, and it complemented a lot of the stuff that we were doing, but in a
Yeah,
way.
I mean, the show itself, Gargoyles, I watched quite a few episodes. I actually remember I had a friend of mine that loved it, so we would always watch it at his house. And from what I remember, the word cinematic you used is is a really good word for that, because I remember it being such a good looking show that when I was a kid and I found out the premise, I'm like, so it's about stone gargoyles that come to life. It didn't exactly like ring my bell, but when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, I'm interested because it looks so pretty. You know, it looks so cinematic, it looks dark, it looks cool. It has a vibe to it that I really liked, and I ended up watching quite a few episodes because of how it looked.
Well, kids are more attracted to the visuals than they are to the story. I mean, that's just natural. The story is a great addition because sometimes things hang on. But as a kid, when I watched stuff, it was always about the visuals as well. And then if it had a great story, that story would stay with you. That's kind of what we were doing. When I was doing the Gargoyle thing, it was all about how would I do a Marvel show? And I did it on Gargoyles.
Interesting.
So is that how you got the gig for Earth's Mightiest Heroes? Was that through?
It's Greg Wiseman, who is the executive in charge, liked me for some reason.
Okay.
At the time, I couldn't figure out why they wanted me.
There's another superhero that we haven't talked about that you worked on, and one that's quite near and dear to Will's heart as well, because he's a big Todd McFarlane fan. Can you share any memories you have of working on Todd McFarlane's Spawn?
Todd's awesome. He's one of the most unique and unusual individuals I have ever met in my life. I mean, he's focused, but he's not, but he is. It's
right.
kind of strange, because I came in on the third season. Eric Radomski, who was also did Batman, was they brought Eric in to I don't like to use this term fix things, but that's kind of what he had to do because it was being done by a studio and there was a lot of issues with it.
Right.
So they brought Eric in kind of fix it. He carried it through the first and second season, and then he left. And then the president of the company had left on maternity leave, and they needed somebody to come in and take it over, and that was me.
Okay.
Well, I had the privilege of working with Todd myself. I did a Spawn book with him a couple.
You know exactly what I'm trying to say.
I know exactly what. I had a phone call with him, and it was like he's chaotic, but there is structure there. That's for sure. It's structured chaos, I'd say.
There's a lot of that with him, and because I worked with him on that. I worked with him. We were doing an animated movie after the series. It never got made. Went through all the production process, and we did the storyboards and we did the designs, but it never went into animation. Unfortunately, it was a beautiful story. Spawn wasn't in it much. It was more of a Sam and Twitch.
Right. And I know a big part of the movie that he wants to do, the new Spawn movie, was more focused on Sam and Twitch and making Spawn more of like the shark from Jaws and not very much a prominent figure in it. So
yes, that's exactly what it was.
That's interesting that that's still stemming from the feature that you guys were going to do.
Well, there was more Spawn in it than that, and it was more of the Spawn from, you remember, from the HBO series.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where I think the ideas for that, he started seeing the possibilities, and he wanted to play with that. So I mean, it had to do with Russian mobsters and stuff like that, and a psychic. I mean, it was a beautiful story. Broke our hearts that we couldn't get it made. I think we even had Mark Hamill we recorded Mark for Twitch.
Wow.
Really? Not Violator then?
I wanted Mark for Mark. I didn't want him to do his voices. I wanted Mark. I wanted his voice because, as you know, Twitch is he's the sensible one.
Mm.
He's the one that's well thought out. And when you talk to Mark and you're just talking to him, he kind of feels that way.
Right.
That's what I want to picture.
What was it? So I suppose you, speaking of Mark Hamill, and obviously you're designing these storyboards around their performances, right? Because that's part of the whole process. What was it like designing the Joker sequences and the episodes you worked on?
Well, at the time when I was doing that, Mark, my first stuff was not Mark Hamill. It was
Tim Curry?
Tim Curry, yes.
Yeah.
To their Tim Curry recordings. We were kind of working with that. I think it was Be a Clown was my first Joker episode.
It was, yeah, you're right, yeah.
So we had, God, I wish I had the recording to that.
What, of the Tim Curry recording?
Yeah, I still have did they ever? I can't even remember if they ever gave us the actual recording on it at that point, because
Well,
I know that
it only came out recently. Actually, someone did release some of Tim Curry's dialogue as the Joker from Batman the Animated Series, and it's quite shockingly different than what you get from Mark Hamill.
Hamill is a ham. His very vision of Joker is a ham in many respects. Tim Curry is still frightening. I mean, it was very good, but it was different. Maybe it was just too dark.
If you ever find those recordings and fancy sharing them, Frank, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I'm trying to remember if we even had that stuff, because I know I went to the initial recording. I don't recall those recordings. I wish I did. That would be. I could probably get a pretty penny for those these days. But you know, at those early recordings, there were questions.
Sure.
You know, that Bruce and Eric had.
Well, speaking of stuff that you have, what memorabilia do you have for the show? Do you have anything from working on the show that you still have today?
What do I have? Hold on.
This is our favorite segment of the show, where all of our guests show us their fun toys that they have. I love it.
Yeah, we love it.
You see this?
I think you have to bring it closer because it's. Oh my god! So
wow, I can make it out though. Is that this animation cells of the concept art of the characters?
These were the original designs. Each director was made a specific set of these.
Wow.
So all this is only the director stuff. These are all hand painted.
Wow.
And I assume you no longer want that, and you're looking to get rid of it.
Oh, yeah. It's no big deal.
That's amazing.
So I have that. I have some storyboards, some scripts with notes and things like that. You know, I have, you know, the model sheets, all of that stuff.
So cool.
You know, I do collect toys, unfortunately.
Do you collect Batman the Animated Series toys? Have you seen all the new ones recently?
I would always collect toys from shows that I worked on.
Cool.
Oh, fun.
So I have a lot of the original Batman toys.
Oh, that's awesome.
That came out for the animated series.
Oh, that's really cool.
I wish they would make a 1/6 scale of the Batmobile from the animated series. I have the one from the movie, but I'm a collector of G.I. Joe. I collected a lot of G.I. Joe stuff in 1/6 scale. So my garage is too full, unfortunately.
It's a treasure chest in there.
I had to collect. I should have collected the smaller ones.
I got gifted. I have a collector's mentality, but I'm also a minimalist, so I'm always battling between the two. And I got gifted recently a few 12-inch Hot Toys of things that I love, like Ash from Evil Dead and a Punisher, and it started a whole new obsession where I'm looking on the internet at all these Hot Toys and like, you know, remakes of movies and stuff, and I've got to fight against it because I know it could be extremely problematic.
Those things are terribly addictive.
Yeah.
I mean, you get a lot of the, you know, the old G.I. Joe window box stuff. They're just fun.
Yeah, it's cool.
The blister packs today, you know, the presentation leaves much to be desired in a lot of the current toys. But anyway, too much information there.
Well, we
always animation, and he's a toy collector. Oh my God!
Look, man, you're talking to the right people here. It's not like we're judging you. We're like, this is really cool. Yeah. We want to see more. So don't worry about it.
I write and draw comics, and I have action figures. It's no big deal.
So Frank, we always ask our guests what they're working on now. What you can share, what you're working on now, even if there's anything you want to direct people to.
It's nothing I can really show anyone.
That's cool, man.
For various reasons, I can't. You know, it could be cool. We'll see. I've been doing a lot of stuff with NFTs recently.
Nice.
A lot of original art. I'm trying to break out and look at different things. Working more on original art as opposed to doing stuff I've worked on. It's weird because, you know, I got a degree in fine art and illustration. That's helped me a lot in my career.
I would say so, yeah.
Having that art history and understanding colors and values, and and then top on all of that, you get all of your editing experience that you do putting these shows together and such. But I started out as wanting to be an illustrator, and I wound up doing comic books. Well, not comic books, but I always wanted to do comic books. But wisely, I went into animation instead. Sorry.
No, I can confirm. I can absolutely confirm.
Very field you're in.
I'm a professional illustrator, and I hate it, so I understand what you're saying.
We have benefits, though, in animation, in case you need a career change.
That sounds great. I have zero benefits.
I'm always, it's weird. I've done a lot. I love the fact that you guys called me for Batman. When I think of all the things I've done, and I loved my time on Batman. There's just a really good crowd of people there. It was always very challenging to work with them because, your storyboard and your designers were always testing you to see how good you really were. And you always had to up your game. And then you see the stuff that Bruce would produce, and it just piss you off because like I said, I enjoyed all of that. It was a blast, but it's one of the least things I've done in my career.
Well, I mean, the reason I reached out to you was because obviously, I now know all of the episodes you worked on, but as a kid watching this show, for some reason, there are a few names in this show that even as a kid, just I remember seeing on screen, and your name was one of them. Because obviously they would do the title card of the show, whatever it was, The Strange Secret of Bruce Wayne, directed by Frank Paur. And I remember seeing your name. So that's just, it may be one of the things you worked on the least. But to me, I knew you from Batman. And then it was only until I started talking to you did I discover all of the other cool things that you've done. But Batman is where I knew you from, right?
By the way, those cards were all done by Eric Radomski.
Right.
They're all pre-digital.
Oh, wow. Cool. I love that.
Like I said, very talented people. But yeah, Batman is Batman. I mean, it's there's nothing quite like Batman. So there's that meme that if you could be anybody, be Batman.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And that's kind of because Batman can do anything, really.
Even in illustration, I spent last year drawing Batman comics, and now I'm not, and I'm pretty upset by it.
Yeah, you will always be the director of the Batman episodes first and foremost for me. And I just want to say, personally, thank you so much, because your work on this show has, made us all very happy as kids and continues to make us happy to this day.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And thank you for coming on. We really appreciate that. Maybe when we get to some of your episodes that you're most fond of, we can have you back on the show to chat specifically about that episode.
Sure, I could do that. I'd have to actually review that stuff, because I'd have to try to jar some of these memories loose.
Now, we do have a fee, though. You have to give us one animation cell per episode for free of charge. So,
yeah, if those were only available.
Well, thank you again, Frank. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
No, well, thank you for having me. It's been a fun morning.
Well, that was fun. Who's for Chinese?